Hey, welcome to Live, Listen, Learn, a show for perpetual learning for everyone. I'm Marco Manuel, and this is episode 5. And today I want to ask, can we stop vilifying capitalism and socialism? Because sometimes, depending on who you are, they like to say capitalism is the root of all evil. And then there's other people that like to say socialism, you are the real root of all evil, and it depends on who you ask. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So as always, my goals are just keep listening, keep learning, ideally from a variety of sources. And if you change your mind, great. If you don't, that's okay. I just want you to keep listening, keep learning. I want to encourage us to be open to new and changing economic ideas and information. And then in particular, I want us to understand that we need both capitalist and socialist mechanisms to confront our present and our future problems. So in my previous episode, in episode 4, I wanted us to think about being open to new scientific information, and I wanted to make an episode about economy, and so we're going to talk about some economics today. So you're going to get a little middle school economy lesson, and then we're going to talk about some current problems and crises that are going on right now. And also kind of too, I want us to think about challenging ideas and listening to each other. So that's why I'm going to keep this little bubble here to be open to new and changing, this time, economic ideas and information, and just learn to listen to each other. And the first thing that we might need to understand is that our absolute and traditional or historical definitions of capitalism and socialism are not super helpful. And when we hear those words, those already might be really triggering, and you don't want to hear anything that anybody's got to say. But we need to take a break, we need to rewind, and we might need to just rethink some things, and that's what I'm going to encourage us to do. So to talk about economics, we need to know what I mean by economics. When you were in school, you probably learned all kinds of different definitions about economics, about choices, and about producers and consumers, and exchanging goods and services. Anyway, we love this diagram. Teachers, I love it, and I use it a lot. And so when I think about economics and any of its related terms, it just means the flow of resources in a community. We are all part of this community, whether you are a producer or you work for one, or you're a consumer, or you're part of one. And we all are beholden to the government, and we're all interconnected in this community. And one thing that happens in one part is going to have a direct or indirect effect elsewhere. So this is the community, and resources are constantly moving in between them. And that's what makes the world work. And I like to talk about economic systems, and I put them on a spectrum. And so this might be new ideas for you. And so part of what I'm going to assign you for some homework or maybe some extra credit is there's both a Vox video and a PragerU video that talk about capitalism and socialism, and they both actually have different ideas than what I'm going to present to you right now. This is what I teach my 8th graders to try to help them understand some of these things. And I think it'll help maybe some of us to understand. And maybe this is some new information for us. So I call this the economic system spectrum. And what spectrum shows or represents is how much government influence or control it has in that economic community. So I got little mini diagrams here of our economic community here. And so on the far left, in communism, which is extreme government control, means that there is no business, and that's just your community, is everyone's the government and the government is everyone. And we know that ideal communism, the way that it was written, it's not supposed to be the government because everyone's just supposed to get along, and we know that doesn't work out that way. And then on the other side, you've got capitalism. And so in a truly free market where there would be no government or regulation or rules at all, that would be like this. There's no government, and just it's individuals and it's the businesses, and they work it out. And we also know that in that situation, it doesn't really work. And somewhere in the middle is what is now kind of becoming known as socialism, or a mixed economy. And literally every country in the world has some kind of this, including us. Another visual is to think about it this way. So just capitalism, free market is little government intervention. So people have more freedom to do make choices, and it leaves more room for competition and innovation. And then on the other side, with a bigger government, the government might have more decision-making power or influence. So I'll give you some examples. So like early China, between like 1950 and 1980, they lived in this world, or at least they tried really hard, and it just didn't work out for them, and a whole bunch of people died. And so they kind of gave up some of their government control, and they actually kind of moved this direction like a little bit later, and they took on some more capitalist characteristics, and they let go of some of the government influence. Not all of it, because they're still definitely like way over here. In the United States, like pre-1910, before the progressive era, there was like very little government regulation in businesses and in industry. And post-1910, the government started to become a little bit more involved, and it changed some tax policies, and it also improved regulations for people that were working. And so they also took a turn and kind of moved in this direction. So socialism is not this thing or that some people think that it is. And now I realize that even if you Google communism and socialism, you're still going to get a definition that has something to do with a planned or central command economy. And I realized that the original Marxist interpretation, he created these ideas, or at least perpetuated them in 18 something or whatever. And then the countries that tried to implement them, they tried to do this. But we know, thanks to history, we know that those systems, like the way far down at that end of the spectrum, they didn't work super, super well. And so I just want you to be open to this other understanding of socialism and capitalism, and socialist ideas just meaning the government's a little bit more involved, and capitalist meaning the government is a little bit less involved. And you definitely still need pieces of both of them if we're going to move through some of these things, all right? We got to stop villainizing the greedy capitalists. They want to take everything from us, and the greedy socialists, they want to take everything from the capital. Just stop it. We got to stop it. All right? We got to stop. So some pressing concerns that I'm learning more and more about here. Again, being open to new ideas. You may or may not be aware of our rising unemployment. So between like April and July, it was as high as like 20% at one point, and I believe it's around like 10 or 11%. And the way that it gets calculated has been complicated because of one of the survey questions. There's like a question that's like, are you employed but not going to work because of COVID? And because of that, it's kind of put this wrench in actually getting a real number. So I'm just going to assert that it's somewhere between 10 and 20%, which is really high. And I think that we might have some long-term kind of cultural effects on the way that our economy functions because of the way that certain businesses and industries might have a reaction to what's going on. One of those industries, mine, like education, I believe is one of those industries that is going to maybe have some long-term ripple effects because of the way that our life is right now. We, in the more immediate future, might be facing an eviction crisis. So some 40 to 50 million Americans might be facing eviction court. And to put it in perspective, in a typical year, there's about 3 to 4 million filings where a landlord will take their tenant to court, and about half of them result in an eviction. So if we go from a typical, 2-3 million evictions, which is a lot, to like 20 or 30 million evictions, do you see, we've got some problems here that we will need to address, and we need to be creative about it. And to add on to our eviction crisis, the rent moratorium is complicated because a moratorium and putting it like your rent payments on pause just puts it on pause. And so I have seen recently like a campaign against like the evil landlords, like greedy capitalists. And that's also not necessarily fair, at least for certain ones, because they've got to pay a mortgage, then you've got to pay property tax. And if you just put it on pause, both of those things, they throw a kink in our community. And this part, property tax, depending on your state, might pay for as much as 10 to 20% of your state's budget to like do the things that it needs to do, like education. And again, long-term effects, we're gonna have some big problems and some big displacement going on. And another thing that I have learned more about is our national debt. And a lot of people don't think that it's a problem, so I put this little note down here. Debt's not a problem until it is a problem. But our national debt right now is at 26 plus trillion, and we're going to tack on another 1 to 3 trillion with our new round of stimulus and things, which we need. But our debt to GDP ratio is 126%. And without going into a whole big explanation of what that actually means, if you just look at the last time our debt to GDP ratio was that high was World War II. And actually, economically speaking, we were doing good in World War II, but then we had to do some things, and we brought it back down, in the following decades. Well, we're going to run into another crisis again, where we have now surpassed that GDP to debt ratio, or vice versa, debt to GDP ratio. And some economists, they put that number, ideal debt to GDP ratio, around 77%. We've been over that since 2008. And so, although our national debt, it maybe doesn't feel like a big problem, and it's not for most people because we don't think about it, but it's one of those things that I feel like is going to creep up on us, and it might become a problem sooner than we think. But to address all these things, we need certain capitalist mechanisms. We need people working, and we might need corporations. I know we all like to hate on Amazon, but let's be real. We all love Amazon too. We kind of need it. We need corporations. We need businesses. We need competition. We need innovations. In every other historical economic slump in the United States, a big thing that helped bring it out of the economic slump was new invention and technology and innovation, which brought on whole new industries so that you have more people working. We need small business opportunities, and we might need to face a reality where we are working in unideal conditions. And I know that's really awful, but thinking back to, again, in episode 4, be open to new and changing scientific information. We've got to be aware of that. And we also can care about this. You don't have to pick. You can care about economics and you can care about public health. Both are absolutely important. And both, definitely you want to think about too, when you think about, we do need some socialist characteristics too. We need more government assistance. We need more or less regulations in certain industries. One of the industries I've learned a little bit about recently is the marijuana industry. And there's it's problematic because it's legal and then it's not legal. So that in itself is complicated. And the regulations that exist make it so that the people that want to be in the industry can't be in the industry. And then the people that are in the industry are maybe people that shouldn't be in the industry. And it's just a mess. And then in general, we're going to need new tax policy. And I know nobody loves taxes, but we've got to roll this out in a way that makes all of this work out. So, your homework. Ask somebody what they think about capitalism and communism. Which one is truly the root of all evil? I hope it's neither, but really most people, they pick one or the other. And take a look at my extra credit section here, the Vox and the PragerU videos that I'm going to link to here at the end. They both have different interpretations because they're using kind of different understandings, and I just want you to think about them in less scary absolute terms and think about them more, intangibly, and recognize that they're not evil. We just need to implement them right. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of my analysis. Let me know what you think about all 3 of our analyses. And if you want to learn more about the debt, take a look at some of the other links. Stay open to new information and ideas as it becomes available. Thanks for listening. Thanks for learning. I'll see you next time.